All right. Welcome to the second ever episode of the Sprout Out Loud podcast. I'm your host, Allie McGowan. I'm a registered dietitian, and thank you so much for being here today. So, I thought it would be helpful if I provided a little bit of background information on me, what led me to the field of nutrition, what I do currently, and what I really hope to bring to the field. So, I originally did not go to school for nutrition. I actually went to school for marketing and worked in the fields of marketing and public relations for quite some time before I actually decided to go back to school, to leave my job, and to pursue more formal training in nutrition so that I could really work in this field. Now, I won't give you my whole life story, but you should know that growing up, nutrition is really not something I ever thought twice about. My nickname growing up was the Little Debbie Queen because I thrived off of Swiss cake rolls and oatmeal cream pies. Basically, if it was chocolate or if it was sweet, I loved it. And, I was also known to pick out just the marshmallows in the Lucky Charms cereal and eat that. And so long story short, I was a picky eater growing up, probably did not touch many vegetables, maybe had some fruit, but definitely thrived off of like more of the sweets and processed foods. And this is not to say that I didn't have access to other foods. I'm very fortunate that I grew up in a household where my mom cooked, honestly, most nights. And as the youngest of six kids, that is like so much work. And shout out to you, mom, if you're listening. Thank you for doing that for us because it is work to make a meal for yourself as an adult. I mean, for me, I enjoy that, but I can't imagine having to feed six people or six kids. Anyways, I was not a very healthy eater growing up and kind of didn't worry about food. Like, it wasn't until college when I sort of had more access to a variety of foods that I sort of switched up my eating habits and I don't know, started thinking beyond just like sweets and was like, oh, maybe we should like eat a vegetable. But really it was in my freshman year or my sophomore year of college. I watched the documentary Food Inc. and I don't know if you've ever watched this, but essentially it's like an inside look at the meat processing industry. And knowing what I know about food documentaries now, they're designed to be really polarizing. They're designed to get like an emotional response. And that is exactly what this documentary did for me. I watched this documentary and I was so repulsed by like the poultry processing industry and really was turned off by sort of like the not only the inhumane practices of poultry processing, but also just like how unhealthy it felt. I won't go into the documentary too much, but if you've ever watched it, you'll probably understand. And again, this is meant to be polarizing, and that's the exact impact that it had on me. But I was so turned off that I decided to become vegetarian and gave up, like meat, chicken. I think I still ate eggs at this time, but sort of changed my diet. And I was, living on campus at school, had access to the dining hall, which sort of did lend to having more options for foods to just sort of meet those vegetarian preferences. And so I would say that I probably changed my diet somewhat at this time. I wouldn't necessarily say that I was actually eating much healthier. I probably was eating more vegetables, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it was like very healthy. But the long story short here is that I sort of was like, oh, wait, maybe I should like care about what I eat and what I put into my body. The vegetarianism didn't last too long, probably like 9 months. And then I'm sure other people have like I don't know, a better re-entry into, reintroducing meat or animal products into their diet. For me, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I was at, like, an Oktoberfest, I think, and someone had either a steak sandwich or, like, a sausage and pepper sandwich, and I just was like, "I that looks really good, and I need a bite of that." And so that was my reintroduction into eating meat. Later in college, I was introduced to more of like a primal or paleo way of eating. And this is something that my brother had adopted. Ryan, if you're listening, he introduced me to more of this like primal way of living where we sort of not only just eat, but also move and live in alignment with our ancestors and this like primal way of living where maybe we're getting sunlight, maybe we're doing more walking, we're prioritizing sleep and stress management. But on the nutrition side, we're really focusing on more of these like whole foods and less of these processed foods. And again, this was just part of my journey. And so at this time, I definitely changed not just what I ate, but honestly, how I was living. And so I had started to incorporate again more of these animal products, but in a way that was different from how I had been doing things before. So I sort of prioritized sourcing a bit more and looked to more locally raised food. So I joined a CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and started buying meat from a local farm. I also started buying vegetables either from the farmer's market or from a local farm as well. I also just want to interject and say that at this time I was living with my parents and saving a lot of money. And food was also way less expensive back then than it is present day. And also, like, just disclaimer, you don't need to, if you have the means to buy from a local farm, amazing. I think that is so wonderful. But also just being cognizant that there's a lot of like good, better, best approaches in the field of nutrition, and do not let the best approach that is unattainable for you stop you from the really good approach that is attainable for you. And so I just don't want for anyone to listen to this and be like, oh my gosh, I can't buy food from a local farm or farmer's market, whether because that's just not available to me logistic wise or financially wise or financial wise. Um, so just disclaimer on that. And noticed a few different things. I noticed that food definitely tasted different. And I noticed that I felt a lot better eating minimally processed foods. And the position that I moved from was never from a place of weight loss being an objective or my body looking a certain way. I honestly didn't even know enough about nutrition to eat in a way that would achieve those things. I was really more focused on food quality and sort of never told myself that I couldn't eat certain foods. Instead, I think I crowded out more of the processed foods by putting the focus on more of these whole foods, minimally processed foods. And that had this positive effect where the more I ate those foods, the better I felt, the more I wanted to continue that approach. And so when I say I felt better, I mean, I had more energy, I had fewer stomach aches. I mean, I don't even think that I realized that certain foods upset me until I maybe had a break from them. I'm also going to just pause here and say that this was my approach before I became a registered dietitian. As a registered dietitian right now, someone who has been working with hundreds of people, talking about these sort of approaches can be very triggering, and the intent is not to trigger anyone. If you have tried this approach and if it hasn't worked for you, then I just want to say that I see you and I understand that. This is me sharing my story and my evolution as a nutrition professional and as an individual. I just felt the need to say that. Okay. Because I do talk a lot about this in my one on one visits. And, having a positive relationship with food is something that I want for everyone. And when we talk about any approach that maybe eliminates foods like paleo, if you're strict paleo, then I think even that eliminates things like dairy. And so I just want to be cognizant of whoever is listening and their history. Resuming, but again, I think that I did not even realize how certain foods were affecting me until I maybe took them out and then was like, oh, wait, what do you mean? I don't have to have a stomachache every time I eat, or I don't have to feel super bloated, or I don't have to feel like I need to take a nap every time I eat. And this sort of also opened my eyes up to exercise as well. So, growing up as a kid, I was always very active. I grew up playing sports. So, I did gymnastics. I think I did dance for a little bit, softball, soccer, all throughout, elementary school. And then in junior high, I did competitive cheerleading, which I did all throughout high school as well. As someone who now does a little bit of CrossFit, competitive cheerleading is like an insane sport. Honestly, it is like a CrossFit workout. And so, was very active growing up, but was not eating in a way that really supported my physical activity. When you're a teen, it's not really something you think too much about. I also played field hockey. And then in college, it was sort of the first time in my life where I was like, okay, I don't really have this structure around physical activity built into my week. And so I started going to the gym, which I had also gone to the gym in high school, but that was really to support maybe some of the other sports I was doing, like field hockey. So I'd like run on the treadmill. Anyways, and my freshman year of college, I just remember I probably spent a lot of time on the elliptical, doing like resistance bands workouts, had no idea what I was doing. I just thought cardio, if it was cardio, it was good. Anyways, when I moved more into this like paleo primal way of living, it also introduced me to more resistance training. And at this time, again, my brother, Ryan, had recently opened up a gym and introduced me to things like kettlebell training, um, and even some obstacle course racing. So I've done like 10 Tough Mudders. I've done the Spartan Beast a few times. And it was the first time that I had done any sort of resistance training. And if you are someone who resistance trains, you'll probably relate to how amazing it feels when you first get started because you have all of these like newbie gains and you have the endorphin experience of not only like the actual endorphins that you get from working out, but then the positive experience that comes from doing something hard and every single week progressing in the gym and getting stronger. And it was the first time that I sort of looked to exercise, not related to sport, not related to like, I wouldn't even say I was ever really interested in exercise for the sake of burning calories. I just was like, this is good for me. But resistance training, it just got me so excited about movement and it got me feeling powerful, honestly. Like, I will never forget doing some kettlebell workouts, and each kettlebell that had a different weight had a different color associated with it. And at our gym, or at my brother's gym, there was, I think it's like a 12 kilogram was green, and there was a 16 kilogram kettlebell, which at that time felt like so heavy to me, which is really cool because, relative to my strength now, I wouldn't say that the weight feels intimidating, but at that time it was like a big deal. And I just remember thinking like, I think I could swing that 16 kilogram kettlebell and doing it and just sort of realizing that, wait, maybe I'm actually strong and doing these workouts it makes me feel good. I love the feeling of pushing myself in a positive way where I'm sort of like, ooh, not really sure if I could do that, but I think I can. So I'm going to try. And then just having this like wonderful experience of, oh my gosh, wait, I might be way more capable than I think that I am. And what else can I achieve? And that is where the obstacle course races were, oh my gosh, so fun. I will say, present day, they are not what they used to be. The first Tough Mudder I did was on Mount Snow, and I think it was 10 miles. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it's 10 miles, but you did like a number of obstacles up and down Mount Snow. And so you're like scaling a mountain, doing these obstacles, and the focus was just on quite literally overcoming challenges. And it was just the best experience for me, and it really catapulted me into developing a really solid and consistent routine with movement that was not hard for me to maintain because I enjoyed it so much. And again, the focus was really just on seeing what I was capable of and having all of the positive benefits of exercise, like the endorphins, but also for me, I am such a better person to everyone around me when I'm moving. I'm a better friend, I'm a better employee, I'm a better registered dietitian now. It's that time for myself in the day that I carve out that, it feels good to know I'm doing something for myself, but also like I am so much more productive. I'm so much more focused. I'm in a better mood. I have better energy when I'm moving. And so I have had this positive, wonderful relationship with exercise for over a decade now. And I feel very, very grateful for that because I know that for a lot of people, they may have a more negative or transactional relationship with exercise where it's just about burning calories, or it's just about losing weight, or it's just about looking a certain way. And that is not something that I have struggled with. And I feel very grateful for that. But, anyways, as it relates to diet and nutrition and some of the changes that I made at this time, I really realized how much food impacted my physical performance. And I sort of made the connection between, oh, okay, like when I eat this way, my workouts are better. And so, again, all of these changes led to just like a lifestyle change and led to me seeing food and nutrition and exercise in a different way that at this time it was not really like publicized, if that makes sense. So I think nowadays we see a lot of information on fad diets, but at this time, primal was or paleo was not even very big. It was very still nascent. Not many people had caught on. I mean, people probably thought I was like a freak for, I don't know, wearing like barefoot shoes and just making certain changes. And I will say, like, a lot of this time was just trial and error, experimenting, seeing what worked for me. And I will say that there are absolutely certain benefits of this approach. Any approach that encourages someone to eat fresher foods is going to have a positive effect. But um there were probably certain foods that I cut out because that was the impression that I was supposed to do. And I honestly just I didn't know much about nutrition. And so, because of my experience, I was like, I wish that I had known about this sooner. And I wish that I could sort of help other people find an approach that works for them so that they can feel this way as well. And it's not that I wanted to like convert anyone to doing what I was doing, because I don't believe that just because it works for me that's going to work, it's going to work for you. But I was very confused about the field of nutrition because I was reading certain blogs saying certain foods were bad, like you shouldn't have dairy or oats or legumes, things like chickpeas. But then you would read another book or watch another documentary, and it was like you should only be plant-based, you should only eat grains and chickpeas and lentils. And so all of these sort of like questions that I had about nutrition spanned over the course of many years. So again, at this time, I had been making these changes and was working in the field of marketing and public relations and was really just so interested in nutrition. And I didn't just want more information on application. I just really wanted to understand the why behind some of it and what is the truth. Like, are certain foods bad for me? Are certain foods good for me? So that I could make a more informed decision. I think I also had the understanding that just because I'm eating healthy foods doesn't necessarily like, I don't want to say it's not enough, but wanted to know like what is right for me. Like, just because I'm eating these healthy foods that I'm reading online are good for me, and just because I'm feeling good, like, is this right for me? And so I was working for a communications firm and wanted more formal training in nutrition. And so I decided to pursue a 1 year online certificate in nutrition for communications professionals, which kind of was like a nice blend of my background in marketing, the work that I was doing in public relations, and my interest in nutrition. And this was 3 courses that I took online at Tufts University. And I thought, okay, I'm either going to take this course or this certificate program, and it's going to satisfy my interest in nutrition, and it'll just confirm, okay, maybe this is just like a hobby for me, or it's going to to ignite my appetite, no pun intended, in the field of nutrition. And it's going to sort of confirm that this is something that I want to dive into more. And so I did the certificate. It took me 1 year online while I was working full time. I looked forward to I looked forward to doing this every like single week. And I finished it and was like, I need more of this. Like, I'm just scratching the surface here. I also want to pause and say that science is not something I was good at, like in high school. And so there's so much science in nutrition. I absolutely hated chemistry. And I will just tell you that I took organic chemistry like multiple times in order to later get into the grad school program that I took. And it's just so funny how sometimes we end up in places where we maybe never anticipated would align with our interests. You know, science not being a major interest for me. I'm sorry. If you hear that clanking, it's my heat. And where was I? Okay, so this ignited my interest and passion in the field of nutrition. And so I made the decision to start applying to a grad school program at Tufts that I had my sights set on. And I had to take some, at this time, I had to take some prerequisite classes. I had to take the GRE in order to make myself a candidate to apply. Um, and it took me some time. It took me like, I don't know, maybe like about a year. So I was working full time. I was taking organic chemistry, physiology, anatomy. I was taking labs for these classes as well, studying for the GRE. Anyways, finally got accepted into the program at Tufts. I also didn't mention this, you guys. This is like a very important part of my journey. Before I even took the nutrition certificate at Tufts, I was really interested in nutrition and just decided to apply for the master's program at Tufts with literally no like expertise in science, no expertise in nutrition in my name. Like, really nothing about my background or on my resume said that I would be a strong fit for this program, except like, I'm really interested in nutrition. And I got rejected. And so the reason why I took the certificate program was because that's what Tufts recommended. And they said, you have, I will never forget the email that I received. This is, I should like find this, but one of the program directors messaged me and said, Allie, you have a very impressive, you know, I don't know, you have a very impressive transcript, except for your lack of science classes. The field of nutrition is, growing in competitiveness, and you would really need to prove your competency in science in order to become a registered dietitian. And I just remember being like, oh, all right, I guess she is right. And so then I did the certificate program online. And looking back, I'm very grateful for that delay because taking that certificate program required me to slow down, like to slow my roll. And it also required me to stay in the field of marketing and public relations for a little bit longer, where I made some wonderful connections there. I developed a lot of strong communication skills, and these are skills that still help me present day. But it also forced me to take this path more seriously. And I don't want to say that I was like immature or not ready, but again, I think the delay helped to, I don't know, it just helped with personal development and growth, that I feel like I had a much more positive experience in grad school because of that. Anyways, I am bouncing around. So I ended up getting into the master's program at Tufts for the second time, which was super exciting. I had shadowed a couple of classes there in Boston, and I just remember sitting in on one class. This is so dramatic, but I just remember being like, "Oh my gosh, these are my people. I feel at home here." And the thought of like being able to learn about this field just felt like such a, I don't know, it felt so exciting and in alignment with my interests. And I was so excited. And I look back on that chapter in my life, and it was the best decision, one of the best decisions I've ever made. But in addition to getting my master's degree in nutrition, this was a full-time 2-year program from at Tufts University. I also did a combined program with Simmons University to complete all of the undergraduate coursework that would be required for me to become a registered dietitian. So I had the option of just getting my master's degree in nutrition without becoming a registered dietitian. That is something that I really strongly considered because I I don't want to say I had apprehensions about becoming a registered dietitian. I just didn't necessarily want to work in a clinical setting. And that's really the only like career path that was advertised to me if I wanted to become a registered dietitian. And so the more I sort of looked into it, the more I realized, okay, no, there are absolutely more opportunities for becoming for registered dietitians as far as like what fields they can work in. So you can work in a community setting, you can work in private practice, you can do sports nutrition, gut health, digestion, women's health. There's so many opportunities as a registered dietitian. And for me to only have my master's in nutrition, it probably wouldn't have set me up for long term success as far as getting a job goes. And that was very important. As someone who left her full time job and was paying to go to, like, has student loans, I wanted to make sure that I would be able to find a job when all this was said and done. So, completed that dual program at Tufts and Simmons. It took me 2.5 years full time, and this happened during COVID. So, I went from commuting to Boston on a daily basis to doing school completely remote. And that was definitely a bit of a challenge, but we made it through. And then after that, I had to do a 1 year unpaid dietetic internship, which is required for anyone who's looking to become a registered dietitian before they can sit for the RD exam. And it's 1,200 hours of unpaid supervised practice where you work in a clinical setting, you work in a community setting, you work in a food service management setting. So I literally worked in a dining hall at this time. And then you have like an elective rotation, and I did my elective rotation in private practice. And so throughout the duration of grad school and doing these undergraduate classes at Simmons, again, it expanded the way I thought about nutrition from a very like medical sense. Like I realized how powerful nutrition could be for disease prevention. And it challenged a lot of thoughts and ideas about nutrition that I had, which is good. Like, if you are working in a field and you don't change your mind, then I feel like that's not good. Maybe you're not willing to look at your own biases if that's the case. And there are certain things about nutrition that I changed my mind about. And there are certain things about nutrition that I sort of doubled down on. I was like, you know what? I changed my mind on this. I tried a different approach for myself. And after learning more, like certain themes sort of come up. We all should probably be eating more fruits and vegetables. We all should be hydrating well. Nutrition is one piece of the health puzzle. It is a very big piece, for sure, but it's not the only thing that matters. Things like sleep and stress management and movement, they absolutely matter. And so I left grad school feeling like I had learned a lot about a lot of things. But it's funny how the more you know, the more you become aware of everything that there is to know, less you think you know, if that makes sense. So if I like don't know much about a topic, I might think I know everything about that topic. And I'm like, oh, I know everything that there is to know. But the more you enter a field, the more you become an expert in the field, the more you're like, wow, there's so much to know. And then you realize how much you know in relation to everything that there is to know. And the more you think that you don't know anything, which is funny because I left school feeling like, oh my God, I don't know anything about nutrition. I had obviously widened and expanded my knowledge on nutrition, however. And anyways, so the dietetic internship is a matching system. So prospective dietitians select their top maybe like 3 to 5 programs that they want to be matched to for a dietetic internship. And then the internship program has to select them as well. And so you don't have the option to necessarily choose a program. You just get matched to whoever chooses you. And so I did get matched to my first choice. I feel like the options for dietetic internships are probably more expanded now beyond the clinical realm than they were when I was doing my program. There were a variety of like very clinical programs out there. And that's just not the direction that I wanted to head. So the dietetic internship that I matched to had this elective rotation where I was really able to dive into private practice. And that's something that I knew I would be interested in. And so I completed my dietetic internship. I spent the bulk of my time in a clinical setting. So I was an intern at a hospital. And that really opened my eyes to clinical nutrition. I have the utmost respect for clinical dietitians. It is just not how I would like to help people personally. A lot of times when you're working in a hospital setting, you're seeing people who are already sick. They're not necessarily asking for a nutrition consult. It may just be part of their stay. And in general, I had a very pleasant experience. I just knew that I wanted to work with people from a preventative standpoint. And so became a registered dietitian. I completed my dietetic internship. I spent some time studying for the RD exam, passed the exam on my first try, which was very exciting moment. And then spent some time looking for jobs and, interviewed with a couple of different companies. I also didn't mention, but during this time, I was doing like a little bit of nutrition coaching. I probably had maybe 5 clients that I was doing, and I was just doing general nutrition. So if you're not a registered dietitian, it's technically illegal to provide any sort of like medical nutrition therapy, which is the use of nutrition to treat disease. And I believe you can provide maybe things like macros, like there are plenty of macro coaches out there, but I was sort of limited as far as like what I actually provided. And then most recently, I have been working in a telehealth setting. So I worked in weight management for over 2 years recently and worked with a variety of individuals in both one-on-one visits and then also in some group settings as well. I had a wonderful experience. I worked with an amazing group of registered dietitians. I'm not sure if any of them are listening, but if you are, there's so many amazing dietitians out there, and it's really interesting. The more dietitians I meet, the more there's like this common thread of we just want to help people. And I think a lot of dietitians are quite passionate about what they do. But present day, I have actually left that weight management position, and I now work for a company called Nourish, where I still do the one-on-one counseling, but I accept insurance, and I'm sort of expanding my expertise beyond weight management, still doing some of that, but diving a little bit more into women's health, hoping to get more experience in sports and performance nutrition throughout all of my experiences. I have worked with people on their relationship with food. I talk a lot about things like stress and emotional eating in my visits, but I also focus a lot on just like the implementation. Again, a lot of people will say, I know what to do, I just struggle to do it. And so that is where I am today. I'm sure that there are things that I have missed in my recap of who I am and my background here. But my hope, present day, is the same as my hope when I decided to leave my job and go back to school for nutrition, which is I want to make the nutrition information more accessible to people. But I don't just want to talk about nutrition science. Like, as someone who is a science nerd, I love to know the science, but it's not super appropriate to just share that science with general audiences. And so I want to take that science and I want to provide it to you in a way that actually makes sense to you, so that I'm not talking to you and things are just going above your head or feeling really dry. I want to sort of say, hey, like, this is how it might feel in your body when these things happen or when we eat this way. Because my hope for myself, the reason why I did all of this was because I wanted to be an empowered consumer of nutrition information. I wanted to sort of find the best approach for me, which has absolutely evolved over the years. And I want to help other people do the same for themselves. And so there is so much nutrition information out there online. It is overwhelming, and a lot of it is quite conflicting. And I want to say that two things can be true at the same time. However, we want to take information and sort of parse it out so that you understand here's what I actually should be paying attention to, and here's what maybe doesn't matter so much. And when we move from this empowered place, when you understand maybe at a high level, some of the science, when you understand what works best for you. And when I say what works best for you, I don't just mean what works best for your body. I mean what works best for your schedule, your budget, your desire to cook, or your limitations. Not everyone has maybe the financial means or the physical means to cook these meals on a regular basis. Also, what works for your family, because maybe something works for you, but we want to make your life easier and find an approach that's going to feed your family as well. And then what works for you can also change depending on your life stage. Whether you, I don't know, maybe have a specific event that you're training for. Maybe you're trying to get pregnant, are pregnant. Maybe you've just been pregnant in your postpartum. Maybe you are approaching perimenopause, or maybe you're postmenopausal. Whatever it is, your approach can change during different life stages. And so, of course, I will be providing some nutrition information on this podcast. It would be silly to not. But my focus is, again, really going to be on how can we apply it to your life, and how can you use this information in a way that helps you and does not hurt you? Because there's nothing worse than information overload. For me personally, it just makes my brain feel like scrambled eggs, and I get confused as to, and this doesn't really relate to nutrition for me because I feel like I have a very strong understanding, but for other things, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what is the best skincare product for me to use? This person's saying this thing, person's saying that thing. And I just want someone to be like, hey, here's what you should look for, and here's why. And I want to be that voice for you as it comes to nutrition and behavior change. Okay. This episode was going to be short, and we're at 43 minutes here. So that is about more. I'm trying not to say words like and like. Maybe we will filter these out. But I'm very excited for this podcast, you guys. I've been sitting on this podcast for quite some time. And so I will be releasing episodes weekly. I will also be including a form in the show notes. So if there's a particular topic that you would like for me to chat about, you can fill out that form. And yeah, my goal is just to like make it accessible, make it applicable, bring some levity and lightness to nutrition. I want for people to feel excited about what they're doing and not like bogged down, like another thing I have to add to my to-do list or to my routine, and so many things to do. Like, no, we're not doing that. We're making your life easier. But anyways, thank you so much for listening to episode number 2. I'm excited to get started with this. I'm excited to talk to you guys. And again, if you have a topic that you would like for me to cover, fill out that form in my show notes. And that's it from me today. So I hope you have a wonderful day. And again, if you're not following me, follow me. I'm on Instagram at Sprout Out Loud, SPROUTOUTLOUD. That's one word. And my website is sproutoutloud.com. And that's that. All right. Talk to you guys soon.